Renault alternators, or Magnetti Marelli alternators, to give them its precise title, poor people in Italy there, but striking only the Red Bull team. Have you done any ferreting around over the winter to get to the bottom of what that was all about?
Helmut Marko we know where the problem lay, in that the alternator was slightly underspecified for the way that Red Bull in particular were operating it. Helmut Marko was quite critical of the, which we believe to be a Marelli alternator, although Renault can insist that it is actually a Renault device. So I imagine there probably has been work there, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a change of supplier. There are other people that do produce electronics of that type for Formula One that have had no problems.
Craig, you mentioned that the setup that Lotus had last year on the sidepod possibly gave them a bit more engine power. I think you actually used that.
Yeah, it's top-end power.
Yeah, top-end power. Let's talk a little bit about that, because there are those who are saying in Formula One this year it is going to be close, and actually the small differences between Mercedes, Ferrari and Renault, which we've seen and we see on the traps and we see on the sector times, actually will become more of a factor in 2013 than ever before.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, you could argue that everyone should be trying to get as much power as possible out of the Renault engine.
It's one of these things. The teams are able to simulate what an extra 10 horsepower will do, or an extra 5 points of downforce. Both of them may cost as much to produce in terms of research and development cost. One of them may produce more lap time. I would imagine that Lotus have found that the top-end power benefit is actually outweighed by a slightly better aerodynamic performance, especially with tyres being quite sensitive this year. I think a lack of downforce in slower corners, which obviously the blown diffuser will bring them, will bring much more benefits, because you've got the compound effect of the tyres not sliding, they're not overheating as much, and the tyres will last slightly longer, because obviously this year they're going to be much softer compound, much softer construction tyres that will wear out far, far quicker. So they're probably focusing on that area. Top-end power is a lot to do with, or top-end speed is a lot to do with power and the drag of the car. And Lotus started to do some work last year to actually reduce the internal drag that the car produces. They've probably done a lot more this year, and probably works a lot more on their DRS. So there's other ways to create this top-end speed that the car, maybe was lacking a little bit last year when it took away the exhaust.
Yeah, and hearing you speak about the importance of looking after the tyres, obviously it's going to be a critical part of 2013. Immediately one thinks of Kimi and his ability, his outstanding ability to be able to put the power down in the most, in a Jenson Button-esque progression. He and Jenson probably the two best guys in Formula One in terms of putting the power down in a linear way. And it'll be very interesting to see whether Romain Grosjean has done any homework over the winter in that area, because if anybody's going to be abusive to the tyres, probably it'll be Kimi's teammate Romain. So that's an interesting two ends of the spectrum that they got there. But both drivers brutally fast.
Yes.
And there's no doubt about that. And I think, they won a race in 2012. It's easy to think that they're going to win at least 2 to 3 races this year. They're looking very good, very solid team there.
They've got the potential to reach that, and potentially championships. They were really close last year. If Romain can bring his points performance up to the level of Kimi, or near that, then there's a constructors' title which the team could easily grab, because they've got two potentially very good drivers there.
How do you predict the top speeds of the Lotus E21 alongside the Red Bull RB9 this year? Because the Red Bull, I say that in the context of the Red Bull being traditionally the slowest car in a straight line. It
will be interesting, because obviously this year you've got some changes to the aerodynamic rules. You can't use DRS to stall other parts of the car, and obviously Red Bull were doing that from Singapore onwards last year. When the DRS opened, the entire rear wing structure lost all of its drag, and obviously gave them a bit more top speed. And historically, they've tried to focus the car less on top speed, as you say, and actually tried to get more downforce in the corners. With the rule changes this year, not being able to use DRS in anything other than the nominated straight, they may have to move away from that direction. And also the strategy where they knew that they could get pole, therefore top speed was much less of an issue for them. They could just run away and win the race.
Yeah.
They got caught out with that a lot last year. And
Except when they could change ratios on race morning, as per as we saw in Abu Dhabi.
There are a few exceptions to that where they followed that strategy. But Red Bull may have to change their tack this year, and it would be very hard to predict. I would imagine at the end of the day, Lotus will produce a car that has a less drag and a faster top speed than Newey will compromise on.
Yeah, that looks to be the character of the team, doesn't it? If you think about James Allison and his boys and Adrian Newey, they do seem to be slightly more efficient in the top speed area, but Adrian is just so good on downforce. And I suppose we ought to speculate here. What do you think we're going to see in the Red Bull on Sunday?
That's going to be really interesting. Red Bull obviously had a lot of problems last year. I think their eventual World Championship victory and the performance in those key races towards the end of last year from India, Abu Dhabi and Austin, where the car was unbeatable, maybe less so at the final race in Rio. I think Red Bull have got a lot of work to do. I don't think they can rest on their laurels, and I think the car will probably be visually very similar to last year's. I think they're going to retain some of the features like the sidepod layout, the exhaust layout, probably even some details around the nose where we had these slots, which will work to try and make the car a bit more efficient. But they've got a lot to do on the detail on the car this year. As
ever, brilliant to talk to you, and we look forward to chatting to you further as the week progresses. McLaren, Force India, Red Bull, and then we've got Mercedes, Toro Rosso coming up in the following week, the testing and everything. We'll be doing a lot more chat like this. In the meantime, can you just give us a brief summary of the engineering elements surrounding your health? From your point of view, it must have been fascinating, I would imagine.
Yes. For those who probably haven't followed, I suffered a heart attack at the very end of the season last year and was rushed in to have a triple bypass. So effectively, while my heart remains the same, I've got the equivalent of new fuel pipes running to it. So my heart muscles are going to get a lot more horsepower this year, and I've lost a bit of weight, so I'm well under the minimum weight limit this year. I need to be ballasted to meet the rules.
Well, knowing you, it was a fight between the doctors and you, because I'm sure you probably wanted to see what was going on all the flat screens and all the stuff, but at some point they probably had to put you under. But I imagine that you were very impressed by what you can do these days.
It is amazing. I went through a couple of procedures. One of them known as an angiogram, where they cut a little hole in your wrist and put a catheter up your vein and actually look into your heart, and you're seeing your heart live on 4 42-inch plasma screens in X-ray form on the ceiling. So I'm sat there perfectly wide awake looking at what my heart's doing, and then saying, well, actually all your fuel pipes are blocked. You're now going to have to go under the knife. So within 3 days they had me in the operating theatre. They'd cut my chest completely open, pulled my chest apart, and had replaced 3 of the veins around my heart within 4 hours, which I find incredible. And I woke up the next morning feeling perfectly well, a little bit sore. Painkillers are a fantastic thing, and was on my feet within 48 hours of the operation. So it was absolutely incredible, and all credit to the consultants and the surgeons at Hammersmith Hospital at Duquesne Road. Did a great job, and 8-9 weeks later, I'm back on the TV with you.
Well, Craig, it's a privilege, mate. I've got to tell you, this guy is a star. And beyond that, not only back here, but also on your own site, there'll be lots of drawings coming up with the Lotus E21 and all the cars. So if you really want to see the detail of what we're talking about here, go to Scarbs' website. Very easy to find it. And Scarbs, thanks so much for joining us again. All the best, and we'll be back again very soon as we look at all the upcoming new cars for the 2013 Formula One season. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.